Welcome to the TriStar Podcast, where martial arts meets family, faith, and personal growth. Join Professor Brummett and Professor Chris Bean as they share stories from the mat, lessons from life, and tools to help you and your family live like black belts, on and off the mat. It's time to train the body, sharpen the mind, and strengthen the spirit, right here on the TriStar Podcast.
Welcome back to the TriStar Podcast. Last episode, we talked about discipline in an undisciplined world. Today, we're going to bring that down to the ground level, the daily habits that turned kids and adults into absolute powerhouses. I'm excited for this one.
Well, I mean, it is I don't want to say it's continuance of, because it is different, but it definitely tags along with what we talked about last time. And it's a necessary topic to build upon the discipline and self-discipline that we talked about last time.
Yeah, and throughout the episode, we're going to say habits a lot. I think habits is the word that most people will connect with and understand kind of the topics that we're talking about. But if you were around and or want to go back to listen to the episode where we introduced the visionary goal setting framework, in there we talked about why practice perhaps is a little bit better word, a more apt word besides habit, because it brings some intentionality to it. But nonetheless, we're going to say habits in this one because I think that will help the listeners to best understand what we're going to be talking about. And
correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not talking about the habits of taking the cold plunge, 4 a.m. shower type, all of those things, right? We're looking at daily habits that are really going to allow, kids and adults alike to move forward, succeed, and create this environment for themselves to succeed.
That's right. Yeah. And while I have done the 4:30 a.m. and the cold shower on purpose routine for a length of time, that is not going to be the kind of topics or the information that we're going to be talking about here today.
Well, and I remember on one of the black belt tests, I don't know if it was the last one or the one prior, and of course, life escapes me with time now, but you had actually made mention to one of the testing candidates about doing hard things, and why don't you just start with a cold shower, turn it on for 30 seconds. And it was funny to see their face. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you can do that?
Yeah. People, if their water heater goes out or something like that, and they have to take a cold shower, a cold bath or something, they just will not take a shower or bath on those days because they can't do it in the cold. It is not a very exciting, well, okay, maybe it is exciting, but not exciting in the ways that you would think of when I say exciting. Not something you look forward to very much, but nonetheless, I think is something that like if you wanted to do something that is outside your comfort zone, to face a challenge on a daily basis, do a cold plunge or a cold shower. Super easy. You get in the shower, you take your normal shower, and then you just turn it colder and colder and colder until you're just, all right, I'm ready to get out. And then you wait there for another 30 seconds or something, and then you get out. Definitely is a way to kind of confront that dragon on a purpose, and it changes your outlook on what challenges are, because it gives you an opportunity to face a challenge on purpose like that. And it just changes your mindset a little bit. But that is helpful in some regards, but that not necessarily the topics that we're going to be talking about on this one here today.
Yeah, but it does have health benefits, and it's cheaper because you're not paying for the gas to heat your water. So,
well, not only that, but you're definitely not going to be in the shower for the same length of time. It'll be a much shorter shower. So, if you did want to find a way to shorten your shower, take a cold shower. That will definitely make it shorter and save on water than otherwise.
And again, you brought up, this isn't the topic, but I'll tell you a quick story. Is when our kids were as teenagers, they would take long showers. And I would tell them, look, you need to get out, or in 2 minutes, because I gave them 2 minutes. I gave them a 2-minute warning. If not, I'm going to turn the hot water off. And then I'd go over to the hot water and I would turn it off. And then all of a sudden it'd be cold. And then they quickly turned it off. So I know I'm mean.
Well, but you told them what was going to happen, and you gave an opportunity to live within those parameters, and they found out what happened if they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
As it relates to habits and kind of the ones that we're going to talk about here today, I think as it is for kids, I think it's the same for adults. If motivation were enough, every January the gym would be packed, and it would turn into like an action movie montage. Except February comes around, and if you go to the gym, the gym is packed in January. And by the time February comes around, it is basically back to normal. And that's because the motivation fades. That, we don't have the discipline to be able to keep these things. It's hard to keep a habit or even keep your word to yourself to do the things that you say that you're going to do, when you're going to do them, the way that you're going to do them. And so we all kind of experience that. So we're going to talk about hopefully some habits today that are small enough, easy enough to implement, that are not going to be ones that you need much motivation or even discipline to do, because they're going to be so easy, especially on the onset.
Well, and I like what you say. You say motivation gets you started, but really habits are what keep you, keep you going, or keep you becoming the person that you want to be. I'm kind of paraphrasing what you say, but I think everybody gets the point.
Yeah, and the real magic happens when you repeat those actions. The stuff that you do, even when you're tired, you're bored, or you're grumpy, those are the things that kind of make the impact, right? We don't necessarily need motivation. Motivation is great because it allows us to be excited about what we're doing, but we need to be able to do these things even when the motivation fades, right? Motivation, I like to say, motivation is that magical mystery mojo juice that everybody's hoping that will smack them on the head and they'll just be ready to go and all excited. Listen, that's not how things work. We have to have some sort of system or protocol, or make that habit so small, so easy to do, that it doesn't really matter if you're motivated or not. You're still going to find the willpower to go and do whatever that thing is. And that's where the at the studio we get to focus on consistency, not necessarily the hype, the motivation that goes with it, but being consistent in some sort of a practice. Motivation, like you said, gets you started, but the habit is what keeps you on that path to becoming something different or better than where you are now.
Yeah, and like Zig Ziglar, I guess we bring him up a lot just because I've really indoctrinated you with him, because he was one of my greatest inspirations as a person and as a motivator. But he always said motivation's not permanent, but neither is bathing. Not to bring the shower back around, but you got to do things every single day, like you're talking about, to get yourself motivated. And once you get into motion is what actually, because you're going to have motivation, like you're excited about something, and then motivation is going to die. But it's the action, that's the habit, that's going to keep you, quote unquote, motivated, even when you don't feel like it. So yeah.
And I think today I would like to go through a couple different habits that I think would be really beneficial to at least share with the listeners. And I think we have a challenge at the end that we're going to give them. But I want to go through a couple habits that are beneficial, and on the surface level they seem easy to do, like they're not going to actually have that much benefit. But I think when that consistency happens, if you could get James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, if you can get 1% better every day over the course of the year, I think by the time that year is done, you're something like 37 times better than you were when you started. If you get just 1% better each and every day. So it doesn't mean, and consistency sometimes is called into question too. What does consistency mean? Is it one time per day, one time per week, one time per hour? Consistency, basically, as we're talking about here today, let's just say it's one time per day, and you want to consistently come at these things on a reoccurring type of basis. It's not like you want to have all of, you don't want to do, 500 squats today and then never do squats again for the rest of the year. And then, next time here's my day, I do 500 squats, or now it's next year, maybe I do 1,000 squats. You couldn't do that, right? It doesn't work that way. I can't do all of my push-ups for the year in one exercise, one outburst. So it's about those consistency. The consistency in repeating these small things, that's where over time the benefit will come in at.
I couldn't agree more. It reminded me of, I don't remember what we did. We had some sort of bet that was going on. I was one of the ones that lost the bet, and I had to do I think it was 1,000 push-ups in a day.
It was Matt Hughes and Gracie when they fought UFC. It was 1,000 push-ups. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do remember that.
Not fun. So...
Yes. Yeah. 1,000 push-ups in a day. Thankfully, I did not have to do that. I won that. But 1,000 push-ups in a day is a lot of push-ups to do.
Yes. And then you don't want to do push-ups ever again. Like, I mean, at least for a period of time. So, yeah.
Well, not only do you not want to, like you almost physically are not able to do push-ups for a length of time after that. Agreed.
So let's get into the first habit.
All right. Yes, sir. So the first habit is the reset ritual. So this one, and listen, as you guys are listening to this one applies to both kids and parents. I think you equally will have some benefit from this. Okay. This is something super easy. You just want to reset, take a deep breath, stand tall, look forward, and be ready for whatever that next thing is. Right? Parents tell us all the time that when their kids can take a few seconds to focus, to sit quietly, to take a breath before they do whatever that next thing is, then that lowers the amount of meltdowns that they have at home, right? Because they can take a second to breathe, to think clearly before going into the next thing. It's a sort of a form of emotional regulation, kind of we're going to use as a disguise in the martial arts, right? We even in the classes, they're in the ready stance before they go into their form. They look, and it's never look go. It's look or shisan, and then sija, which means go. So it's look or focus, even rather. Then it's go, right? So they take that second, right? And what that does is that gets them ready and prepared to do that action. It kind of clears the mind. It gives them a reset. And, I think adults could use this or need this just as badly, right? Because stress hits, that's the time to reset. If you're frustrated at work, again, time to reset. Before you act, reset. Before you react, reset. You can't control everything, but you can always control your state of mind, your sort of state of being as you go through this. So take a minute, reset before you do the next thing, especially when you are kind of getting out there on the limit of your where your frustration is, or your anger level, or that level. You know what I'm talking about. Reset before you do something that you regret doing later on.
And the nice thing is it's one of the things that's already built into what we do. You brought it up, and then to add on to that is you have the chumbi jasa, which is the ready stance. So you've got your student, our students get into that ready stance, and they generally are in an attention position prior. So then they pop out in that ready stance, and they're breathing. To your point, they're taking a deep breath, because what are they doing? In order to say chumbi jasa, sir, they're breathing in order to do that. And like you said, they're looking. They got focus on what they're working on. And then when they complete it, what do? They baro. They come right back to reset. And baro means to return. What are we returning to? Are we returning to our reset position so that we can start to move forward to the next thing?
Yeah. And, the other thing is we do that all the time, and it happens by default. We don't often think about that. But I think that having this right now as an opportunity to kind of share the kind of mental side effect, maybe there's a better word than that, but the mental byproduct for what's going on, why we're doing that, the intention that's there, I think is helpful. And then to be able to bring that outside of just the four walls of the karate school, right? You are in the lunch line and somebody cuts you off, or you're driving in the car if you're the parent and somebody cuts you off. Take a second, right? Think about what is the best action that I have here, especially if you've got the kids in the car. You don't want to be that person. You don't want your kids to see that side of you, I hope. So take a second, reset, get recentered. Listen, this doesn't really matter. It's okay. Hopefully they get to where they're going. That's all right. We're all good. They're good. Let's just keep going, right? Just take a second, reset before you do something that hopefully if you take that second to think about it, then hopefully that will deter any of the negative things that might happen if you don't reset otherwise.
It reminds me of, especially down in the South, when they say, "Oh, bless her heart." Now the tone is important as well, but at least they're using different words than somebody pulled out in front of me and I say, "Oh, bless his heart." Now what I meant and what I said are two different things. Yes, I get that, but it's creating those reset rituals or routines, as opposed to what you had before when somebody were to cut you off, or you're having a bad moment or a bad situation, that type of thing.
Well, and another thing it does too is it is a pattern interrupt, especially if that is a consistent type of attitude, mentality, or even just something that you do on a regular type of basis. If you take that second to have a pattern interrupt, to stop, think, reset, take a breath, and then you can think clearly about whatever that thing is. And maybe not do the same normal outcome that you regret doing later on. Just take that small time just to have that little bit of interrupt before you go on a consistent basis that of what normal happens.
And we do that all the time with the kids, with those pattern interrupts. I'll give you, for instance, two nights ago, one night ago. It was last night. Wait, no, 2 nights ago. Excuse me. We played Chinese Stars at the end, and one of the 5 and 6 year olds, he got hit on the side of the head, and he's pretty tough, and he started to get emotional. And at the end, I walked over to him, and he was still a little emotional, and I called him by his name, and I said, "Can I look? Can I look at it?" And he's still doing the crying, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" And he stopped crying. I go, "Do you want to know the truth?" He's shaking his head, yes. And I go, "There's no blood." I said, the nice thing is you are okay." And just that pattern interrupt of me, doing that, it was like it totally shifted and reset him. And then he was like, "Okay, I am okay. I'm not bleeding." So I know that's a roundabout way to talk about, the reset ritual, but those pattern interrupts are very important. And as parents, you can utilize those with your kids in different fashions, of course.
Right.
And I'll give you a for instance too. Like, I'm not saying this is going to work for every single kid. My wife did share this with one of her coworkers who just had a baby. But Keegan, our youngest, when he would start crying, I would make this sound, and I don't even know if I can make it anymore, but I would go like really, really loud. And I don't even know if that came across the microphone well enough. Like, oh, let me get a little closer. Okay.
Okay.
Like
Sounds
I
like
used
a
to be able to
burp.
do it really louder, but I would do that. And then all of a sudden he would just stop and just listen. And then when I was done, he wouldn't cry anymore. It was so weird. It was a pattern interrupt. I used it as a sound, and then it reset. And then there's some other ones too. But yeah, it was just kind of funny. And then my wife shared this with one of her coworkers who just had a baby, and she did it on her child, and it worked.
Right. Well, and the cool thing about that reset habit is it takes almost no time. You take just a second to breathe, kind of get recentered, get your bearings before you go do whatever the thing is. And I think the other subtle thing that's happening there is it's setting an intention, right? If you and maybe you can link those things up, but if you can link setting an intention with that kind of reset, I think that's a tremendous way to build that into something even more. So what do I mean by that? Well, take a second to take your breath. But as you do so, think about how do you want the impact, the next thing to happen? What is the impact that you want to have happen? And then whatever that thing is, you come out with that type of mentality. So for instance, when you come home from work, take a second in the car, do your reset, take a breath, but then think about, okay, how do you want the interactions to go when you get inside with your family? Do you want it to be all about work? Do you want it to be all about them? Are you coming in, you're yelling at somebody? Listen, think about that intention. What is the intention you want to, what is the impact that you want to have? Maybe that would be a better way to have that to be explained. What is the impact that you want to have in those next few moments? So take a minute to reset, think about the impact that you want, and then go and put those things into action. That just reframes that whole thing for you, and it really gives you an opportunity to double down on that reset. And for the students listening, while you are getting ready to do that form, we say, look, think for a second, how do I want this form to look? What do I want this pattern to be? Me personally, I almost always, as I'm doing a form, a pattern, I almost always envision that I'm at a tournament, and it's me between me and this other person, and whoever is the winner gets the first place. Right? That's probably not the best thing to think about as you're doing it, but that's what I'm envisioning. And I've been to enough tournaments to really be in that place and to do my form in that kind of way. Right? So as I'm doing the form, that's where I'm at. Right? So I take that minute on that mental reset, and I double down with intention. What do I want the impact to be? And that's the impact that I want to be. And maybe moreover than that, let's do it as an affirmation. I am the best at doing this form, and I'm going to let everybody else in the room know it and feel it as I do this form. Right? That would be a way that you can. We're just stacking so many different things here. Then you can stack that type of affirmation. I am the best at doing this form, and I'm going to let everybody else in this room know it and feel it, and then you go do the form.
Yeah, and specifically through your actions, not your words.
Yes.
Yeah, because then it's arrogance. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, and I know that's not what you were saying, but I just want to, preface that or put a tagline at the end of that. It reminds me of what Zig Ziglar always said, and I keep bringing him up, but you can't tailor make your situations in life, but you can tailor make your responses to situations in life, and that's why often as a time, most of the students and also parents, no matter what time of day it is, they hear me say good morning to them, no matter what time of day it is. And when somebody asks me, hey, how's it going or how you doing? I usually don't say good or fair or I'm doing horrible. It's I'm doing super good, but I'll get better. Outstanding, but I'm improving. I mean, those are just, I want to set this tone of my conversation with those individuals in a way that is powerful for myself, but also powerful for them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're ready to talk about the habit number 2. We did habit number 1, and I think that you can make that as basic as you want, and then we gave you lots of different opportunities to make that more impactful, but also a little bit more in depth. So habit number 2 is one room, one task. And listen, this
I
is
love
not.
this.
Yeah, this really is a good one. This is not something you need to hear 1,000 times. You already know what this is. But let's come at this maybe with a different way than what you've done before. Okay, you do things one at a time, one task, all of your focus on just that one thing. This is martial arts attention training in disguise. Adults, listen. Parents, you're going to benefit from this too. Multitasking. Okay, listen. Multitasking is a myth. Neurologically, when you multitask, your brain stops doing one thing and then starts doing the next thing. You're not doing both things at the same time. You actually are just switching back and forth between the two things. And what that means is you might be kind of doing two things, from the outside, two things at one time, but you're doing them kind of poorly at best, because your brain is just rapid fire switching back and forth. You're never actually truly focusing on task number 1 or focusing on task number 2. So if you can focus on one thing, then move into the next thing, right? This habit builds mental clarity, confidence, and of course, consistency, because you're finishing one task before you do the next thing, right? How many times are you trying to multitask and you end up halfway doing the first one, or not even finishing the first one? You focus on on one, then you go back to again. That is that switching that happens in your brain. You're not actually doing those two things at one time. And listen, just in case you've never heard this before, I want to be the one to tell you, focus is a habit. The more you train it, the stronger that will get.
I'm just thinking of all the ADD people, ADHD people that are listening to you saying I can multitask, and you're probably not making them very happy right now. But what you are saying is true. I agree with you. Whether you have ADD, ADHD, or not, by doing two things at once, you are generally doing both of them poorly, and you could do them better. Now, not the ADD, ADHD. Yeah, you might have to switch to something else and leave that, but understand that it's not completed, and you got to come back to finish it. So it's not to say that you can't take the task A and put it on pause, go to task B, do it halfway, and I don't mean halfway and you're done. Put it on pause because now your attention's back at A or number 1, whichever I used, numbers or letters, I don't remember, but then finish this one and then go back. Now you've completed them, but what you've done is you stayed focused on one and then moved to the other. That's different than trying to do both of them at the same time. As to your point, then you're doing both of them poorly. But I want to make sure that the ADD and ADHD people know that we understand that their brain may work a little bit different.
Well, I think in society now, it is so common to be doing multiple things at one time. Like that has become the new norm, to do more than one thing at a time. Think about parents or students who are listening. Think about how many times you were sitting down to watch a movie or TV show. Do you have your phone in your hand while you do that? Right, so you have a screen in your hand, and you have a screen on the TV, and somehow you're paying attention to both of these things. You're not really paying attention, and sometimes on top of all of that, you have a screen in your hand, you have a screen on the TV, and you're having a conversation with somebody next to you. Okay, listen, one of those things is not actually getting into your brain at the best, right? Probably a couple things are not getting into your brain at the best, in that scenario. So if you can try to practice this, then you will be able to get better at it. right? So set aside a specific time to focus on one task at a time. Focus on one task for 15 minutes. Then take a 5-minute break and then go back to that task, right? That the Pomodoro technique is similar to that. So you focus on one task for about 20 minutes. You set a 10-minute timer, then you rest for 10 minutes, and you go back for another 20 minutes, right? And you can kind of vary the time between those to find what best suits you. But the benefit to that is your brain will be better at focusing for that set time because you know that set time has an end. And at that end, you're going to go do something different. So, right. So it seems like taking a break is not going to be helpful for your productivity or for getting things done. But however, it has a tremendous effect on how well you're able to get things done because your brain will focus in on that one thing for the 20 minutes, the 15 minutes, whatever your time length is. And then it knows that it has a reprieve. It has a rest at the end. And then you go do something else, whether it's you work on writing this paper, you work on this task, and then you scroll on your phone for 5 minutes. Then you go back to this thing, right? Now, that seems on the surface like you're not being very productive. But again, if you can have full focus on one thing for that time, then you have a little bit of, and then you come back, right? That switching back and forth is much better than the consistent microsecond switching back and forth that happens on a normal basis.
Well, and it has a compounding effect to your point where you talked about focus is a habit, and it actually the more that you train it, it gets stronger. And so you're reinforcing the fact that you are training it. And yeah, you are taking a break, like you said, but then you're coming back and training it again. And it's so freeing, again, I mean, for people that don't have ADD and ADHD, but it's also freeing for people that do have that to understand that there's an end to the focus time. And then I can do what I want or not have to be focused. And then I can get right back into it. So one room, one task.
Yeah. And I'm going to reach over for my desk here. I have one of these little timers here. It's like a little kitchen timer. It's magnetic. I keep this on my desk. And what I'll do is I'll just turn it up for my time and then hit the button. It starts and I keep an eye on it as I'm going. And the other kind of cool factor about that is because you can see the time, it's going to go down or up or however you want it, but you'll be able to watch it, right? So as you're going, you look at it. Okay, yep, I have this much left. Okay, great. I have this much, and that's for those of you guys that can see. If you're not on watching on video, I just have a little digital timer, and I can see, I keep that on my desk. Like I said, I visually
looks like a hockey puck.
Yeah, it's like a little kitchen timer. It's like $5 or something on Amazon. But the real cool benefit to that is you get to see it count. Whether it's counting down or counting up, you get to see it. So you get to look. Okay, I have 2 more minutes left. I think I can get this one thing done. Oh, actually, I can get a little bit more. And so then it becomes a little bit of a game that you're playing because you're kind of racing against the clock. And I find that to be beneficial for me. And I know that there's a lot of people that have said similar things with those little timers, especially when you can see it counting. An analog one would work the same as long as you can see that hand move and you know where it needs to get you to be the end.
Yep, totally agree. And I just want to remind everybody that multitasking is really being actually distracted. I mean, that's all it is.
Yes. Now, moving from habit 2 to habit 3. Habit 3 is the gratitude sandwich. And this is such a good one that works no matter where you're at, whether you're at the karate school or at home, as adults, as kids. Such a good one. Right? It's so light and it has a power to it, right? The gratitude sandwich. With this, you want to start your day with one thing that you're grateful for. So you start the day by saying one thing that you're grateful for, right? And as you go through this, it could, I guess, be the same thing each day, but I'm going to challenge you to make it something different for each of those days. Right. And then so you start the day with some sort of declarative statement about something you're thankful for, some sort of gratitude piece for your life. Then you end the day with one thing that went well. Everything in between becomes easier to handle. I find that this is so helpful because what it does is it kind of pre-frames your brain to think about good things as the day goes along, because you know that you're going to have to write down or to say out loud that one thing that you're grateful for, the one thing that went well at the end of the day. And we know that what you're looking for, you're going to find. So
Yes.
if you're going through your day, you're looking for things to go good, looking for beneficial things, looking for things that you're going to be grateful for at the end of the day, you're going to find a heaping load of those things, right? They're going to be abound. They're going to be all over the place. You are going to be a very extremely grateful person because that's the mindset that you have. Right. And listen, people who practice gratitude, especially kids who practice gratitude, they behave better, they listen more, and they have the ability to bounce back faster because they're not going to be dwelling on the negativity. They're going to be in the positive side because those are the things that they're going to be looking for. And again, we know that you're going to find what you look for. Adults who practice this, parents, when you practice this, you're going to start, you're going to stop chasing the chaos. And you're going to start to notice the progress that you're making through your life. Gratitude builds resistance, not entitlement, right? Some people think that that's how it is. It is not that way. You're grateful, truly grateful for the things that God has placed in your life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's why, like in our, in our field trips that we do, so we have, schools that come to do the field trips. There's 3 good attitudes that we teach. The second one that we teach is having an attitude of gratitude. And I give all the kids an opportunity to tell me one thing that they're grateful for. But in the beginning of that, I tell them the same thing you just said is, you want to wake up every single morning and be grateful for something. Go to bed every single night, be grateful for something. And I go, if you can't think of anything to be grateful for when you wake up, be thankful that you woke up. And I say, consider the consequences. I mean, we're all going to die. I'm just going to try to make it the last thing that I do. But be grateful that you woke up. And then the cool thing is we go through and everybody tells me what they're grateful for. Mom, dad, God, Jesus, my toys, my pet, whatever it was, or whatever it is. And then it's funny because at the end of all of that, I just go, oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed in you guys. And they all kind of look at me like, what do you mean we're disappointed? I just told you the things I'm grateful for. I go, none of you guys even came close, like reasonably close to the things that the one of the biggest things that I'm thankful for. And they're all looking at me and they're trying to guess. And I go, you want to know what one of the things I'm most grateful for? They're like, what? And I go, toilets. And they're like looking at me. I go, hey, I don't know if you know, but you used to have to dig yourself a hole, do your business in the hole and cover it up. I said, now I can flush that stuff away. I said, I am grateful for toilets. But the whole time that I do that is just, getting them to kind of, lightly, fun, but look at the things that they're grateful for. And then the other thing that we do alongside of that is we teach them how to do a handshake because they have a line leader that they're going to have to show gratitude towards, and then they have to thank them. Just like we do in class, we have them turn, bow to their partner. A bow is showing gratitude, but then we also, because we live in the Western world, we don't just bow. We have them shake their hand and say, hey, thanks for being my partner. I mean, those are just small demonstrations of gratitude.
And that handshake, I think that is so impactful, especially to learn that to do a handshake correctly at a very young age. And you talked about that. You do it in the field trips. We do it in the classes, and it's across all the age levels. They do a handshake. They look their leader in the eyes. They say, thank you, sir, or thank you, ma'am, depending. And when we do that, we're looking for a couple things. We look that they're looking us in the eyes. They're saying the words and looking us in the eyes, because sometimes, especially for kids, that is a skill, I'll say, I guess, a skill that is not often happening elsewhere sometimes. So being able to look them in the eyes and say, thank you, sir, or ma'am, right? There's some respect in there. There's also that eye focus in there. And then for the handshake, it's not just, and you go through, well, I'll give it to you. I'll let you do the
yeah, they're just, we break it down into three different things. And all we do is we take our fingers and, the right hand and we go like this. We say eye to eye, web to web, squeeze. That's it. That's how we teach them how to do it. Now, there are 3 ways that I say that are 2 ways that are wrong and 1 way is right. I have a little whole ordeal that I do, and we don't have to go into all that. But basically, one of them is giving somebody the stinky, floppy, dead fish. The other one is giving someone the iron grip where they grab real hard. But the real way to do it is look somebody eye to eye, match web to web, and then you just squeeze.
And again, that is such a small, simple thing. But truthfully, I don't know that I ever was taught how to shake somebody's hand. It was just something that, happened. But learning how, like actually learning how to do that, as opposed to trying to pick it up on, by accident, actually learning how to shake somebody's hand, I think is a skill that is in huge supply right now. Like a lot of people need that. And I think that the people who know how to shake hands, that will go far and away for them. Like, because especially you think about as a job interview, whatever that first meeting that you have with somebody, whether it's a friend or a colleague or that job interview, you're going to have to look somebody in the eyes. You're going to have to reach your hand out and shake their hand. And if you can do that correctly, I mean, let's say that everything else is the same. And I'm kind of paraphrasing the one that you do, but everything else is the same. That handshake could very well be the thing, the separation, the difference that gets you the job or doesn't get you the job. So being able to learn how to and have the opportunity to practice how to shake somebody's hand with respect and with confidence and with consideration for the other person is hugely important.
Yeah, and that's why we, the polite greeting, where we introduce ourselves. Hi, my name is, what is yours? And then they repeat it back. And then I say, nice to meet you, whatever yours name is, that. So I'm hearing their name, I'm using their name, because that's also important as well. But the whole gratitude sandwich, like, starting the morning off and being grateful, going to bed, being grateful, puts those, it puts the right framework, like you said, around your day, and it allows you to have that lens to see your day in the proper perspective. And then it also allows you to go to bed at night with that same lens, because you're demonstrating your gratitude at the end of the day with the proper perspective. So, because we know that our subconscious is really important. And when we go to sleep and dream and all those things, I mean, that's vitally important as well. Not just the stuff that we do when we're awake, but how we talk to ourselves when we're awake is also how we're, talking to ourselves when we're sleeping as well. So we have to be very cautious of that.
Well, and something I hadn't thought about until you just talked about that. But I wonder if there have been studies that show the difference between somebody who is in a, let's say, a positive kind of state, and then what their dreams are like, versus somebody who is in a negative state, like throughout the day, and then how that relates to their sleeping, or even their dreams, or even to their sleeping. And I wonder if there's any correlation between those things. I would suspect that there would be, and I would imagine that the people who have on general positive, like we're talking about, having that opportunity to do that gratitude sandwich, where they're grateful throughout the day, they're looking for the positive things, they're being in a positive type of mindset. I'm gonna hypothesize that you're going to probably find that you have better sleep, and if you dream, the dreams are going to be on average, I think, better than otherwise. And if you're in a negative type of state, you're looking for negativity, you're finding negativity, if it's all negative through your day, I'm going to guess you're probably going to not sleep as well or soundly, and then also your dreams are, on average, I think, going to be more negative than otherwise. That's a full-on guess, but I think that there's some correlations that could be drawn from that.
Well, I know when you start your day in a negative state, it usually doesn't go very positive from there on up. So let's just, just from being awake, that is a thing. So
moving into habit number 4. Habit number 4 is the daily promise. I think out of all the ones that we're going to talk about here today, I think that this one is probably my favorite. I really like this one. One promise, right? Just make one promise to yourself. It could be to make your bed. It could be to be kind to your sibling or to your spouse, or to those people that you work with, right? One promise. And I think that, okay, let me give you
wait. Did you just pause on when you said even the people that you work with?
I suppose I did.
Were you tacitly saying something about me? No, just kidding.
I think on average, people are around the people that they work with because they work with them, not because they choose to be around them. I don't necessarily have that, because the people who I work with, I've known for basically since they were kids, and got to see them grow and mature into the adults that they are. But on, outside of my job, in any quote unquote normal job that other people normally have, the people who they work with are not people who they would choose to hang out with otherwise. And so I think that one, for most adults, will hit home more than perhaps some of those other ones would.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like when I had a real job, I did not. Well, most of those people are all older than me anyways. And so they were in a different frame in their life than I was. So I think that was part of it. one of them I became kind of friends with, and I did go over to their house a little bit. But he had a family, like, husband. He was a husband, and he had a wife. So I think I had dinner over there twice, but it was just like a friendly. They invited me over, but we weren't pals. So yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think that through. And then some of my other friends, yeah, it's interesting. It often is the time, they're not your go-to buddies.
Right. So if that one promise that you make to yourself is to be kind to those people, to have some sort of compassion for those people that you are around that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise choose to be around. Maybe it is the habit or the promise that you make to yourself is to walk for just 10 minutes, to stretch, to read 5 pages. Listen, the point here is simple: to keep promises to yourself, to keep your word to yourself. Because when you trust yourself, then you become unstoppable. The problem is we are okay. Let's say on for most people, you are your own boss. After you get to a certain age, you are your own boss in the sense that you get to kind of choose how you run your day. You don't necessarily you should go to work. Your boss wants you to go to work, but you don't necessarily have to go to work. You could choose to go do something else, right? You are your own boss. You get to make those choices through your life. But the problem is, how many times have you told yourself, I'm going to wake up early tomorrow and work out. I'm going to wake up early tomorrow and do this. And then the alarm comes the next morning and you don't do those things, right? So you are on the onset of your day, breaking that promise, breaking the trust, breaking the word that you had to yourself. That's not where you want to be at, right? So you are a bad employee and maybe even a worse boss as if you want to relate it to yourself like that. So keep your word to yourself. Trust yourself, because then you have an opportunity to become unstoppable. Listen, confidence is not a feeling. What it is the result of keeping your own word to yourself.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because the way that you build that confidence is what you said, keeping that promise to yourself. And then when you do that, you're developing whatever said promise that is, you're developing that skill or skills. And when you do that, then what happens is you have there's a competency that you now have that you didn't have before. And through that, you now have confidence in that competency because you kept that promise to yourself. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. And when you have that practice of keeping your promise to yourself, then when you say things, then when you say things, you're more careful about what you say, because you're not going to say things that are untrue. You're going to be able to think about it and have that opportunity to take that reset, set your attention. How do you want this to be? Then you come at that with a correct frame of mind. I keep my word to myself, so I'm not going to say something that I'm not going to follow through on. So you have to be very careful about then when you start to be trustworthy to yourself, because then you want to continue being trustworthy to yourself, because every time you break a promise to yourself, it's like when a friend breaks a promise to you, perhaps even more so, because you have a better connection to yourself because it is you than you do with your friend. So when you break a promise to yourself, it is worse than a friend breaking a promise to you.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And I think that's why Scripture talks about the fact that, your yes should be your yes and your no should be your no. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we're getting close here to wrap up. I want to do one more habit, and this habit is practice before pleasure. And this one I think is so easy to understand, right? People get this instantly. You do the fun things you do the fun things after you do the effortful things, right? You do the work and then you have the fun. Homework before video games, chores before playtime, right? It's not punishment. What it is the correct sequencing, right? You want to do the things in a proper order. There is a order to success. And listen, it doesn't matter if you're a kid, it doesn't matter if you're an adult or a parent, everybody needs this. When you reverse the order, things get chaotic, right? That's not where you want to be at. You want to have, if you think about this, if you had pleasure first and then work later, then that's going to be so stressful. But you want to flip the order. And when you flip the order, your life is going to change. Success has a rhythm. Effort first, reward second.
Yeah, it reminds me of the concept that we talk about dinner before dessert,
Mm.
and again, I know I keep bringing up Zig Ziglar, but he talks about that, life, uh, life is not like a buffet, because in a buffet, you go in, you eat, and then when you're like what it used to be, you go in and you eat, and then you would pay when you leave. I mean, now when you walk in, you actually pay before you eat. But it used to be, and when he would do his speeches, that's what it was. As you would walk in and you would eat all you wanted to eat, and then you go pay at the end. But that's not the truth. You have to pay in the beginning, and then you reap the benefits in the end. And man, there's so many crossovers to what we talked about with self-discipline, and then even some of the other podcasts that we've done, but I don't want to rehash those. But yeah, dinner before dessert. And I love how you said, success has a rhythm. It's effort first, and then reward second. And that's why success is boring.
Mm.
We've told the kids over and over again, success is boring. And only successful people can handle that boredom. And this is one of them: practice before pleasure.
And okay, so success is boring. I think that's a note that I like to talk about. I share this with the kids sometimes. Think about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was very likely the best basketball player that we have ever seen up to this point. Maybe there's some argument there, but I think at the very least he was one of the best of all time. Michael Jordan. When you get as far up as he was, what that means is, if you kind of zoom out a little bit, if you think back, that means he was standing on that free throw line, shooting free throws for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. He stood, let's say on the 3-point line for hours and hours and hours, in all the different places of the court, all the layups, all the different practices that he went to, all of those. Now he had some talent, I think. He also had an amazing work ethic, and we know this because early on he didn't make his basketball team. Was in high school, I think. He wasn't able to make the team.
Believe it was college.
Okay, in college, I always chuckle a little bit when I think about this. Somebody told Michael Jordan he wasn't good enough to play basketball. That's such a funny thing. Like that coach, I don't know that has such an impact, I'm sure, on Michael Jordan's outlook from thereafter. Right? It's like, nobody's going to tell me I can't do this. Watch this. And because he had that type of mentality, he had the work ethic to follow it up, but he also was comfortable with doing the boring things, comfortable with standing on that line, shooting those shots over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and then more. And they come back the next day and the next day and the next, all of that time, right? If we had that type of mentality, if we had that type of opportunity to stand and focus for that long, to do something that is so boring on the onset, from the outside looking in, over and over, with that much repetition, with that much of dedication and precision and intent and purpose behind all of those things, then the outcome is success, right? But we have to be able to go through all of that boring grind, as the other people like to say it. You have to go through that boring grind in order to end up in that successful type of place. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where most people cut bait and get out because, this is boring. I don't want to do this. Well, then you are on the path to doing something very successful if you're able to go through that boring stuff in order to get to the other end. All of those practices. Listen, we do our best to try to make the classes that we teach fun and exciting, and maybe even a little bit of entertainment that's thrown in there. I think that we talked about this a little bit on when you interviewed me. I didn't necessarily need those things when I was going through the ranks. I found enjoyment doing the martial arts just in general. That was fun to me. Standing in the corner, practicing something over and over and over again so that I could get it right. I knew the impact that had, so I was okay with doing those things, that boring stuff. Playing the games would have been nice perhaps, but I didn't always get to do that because I was doing something else instead. Not that makes me super successful or capable of doing the boring things every single time, because not everybody is. What I'm saying is, martial arts sometimes is boring. We hear this from the kids, hear this from sometimes, they're just bored. Okay, well, listen, yes, we have to do these moves, X number of times in order for the students to be able to learn and do these moves so they can test and make it to the next level. So if you think about the quarter is 3 months. The first month of information, most of the time people do okay with that. Nobody's really bored in those classes because you're learning all the information. The second month, oftentimes that's where the boredom starts to sneak in a little bit, because that second month is where all the repetition occurs. That's where the remembrance comes in. And you have to do something X number of times. Everybody has a different number of X, but everybody has to do something X number of times in order for them to understand and be able to do that move or that sequence or pattern or insert whatever the thing is, in order for them to actually learn it to do it. And then the third month, most of the time the boredom is kicked out, because that's where the testing comes in. We have the stripe test and we have the belt test. And so it's all tiered or tapered or leading us to that test. And that test is the test of skill. It's the test of remembrance. It's the test of success and how successful you were throughout the quarter. And if you want to zoom out even maybe a little bit more, it's a test on how well you were able to do the boring things over and over and over again, not just in the karate school, but also at home, in order to have the output of excelling at that test, to perform at that test, not just scrape by.
You laid it out perfectly. And the question that I think we all need to ask ourselves when things are boring, and like even from a parent's perspective, when the kid says to you, yeah, I'm bored with karate, I don't want to do it anymore. Well, parents, when you went to school, were you ever bored? Yes. In your job, are you ever bored? Yes. Did you quit any of those? And if you did, how beneficial was it? Not to keep bringing up my book, but that's why there's a chapter in there talking about quitting hurts more than you know, because it's not just, okay, I'm completing this activity, I'm going to go find something else that is going to quote unquote motivate me or stimulate me for a period of time so that I'm not bored. And what you've lost in that whole practice before pleasure idea is tremendous. There's a compounding effect that you've lost by stopping that, by letting that process go and not working through it. You'll never know what you have lost because, one, you as the student stopped, and two, you as the parent let your kid do that. I've had numerous conversations with numbers of kids that I see later on that quit and have said to me, man, I wish my mom wouldn't have let me quit, or I wish my parents wouldn't have let me quit. And I often say to them, well, why? Because now I don't have my black belt, or there were so many things that I learned that I just gave up, or it really was fun, but I was just bored at the time. And if I would have just gotten through the boredom, like there's so many things that they say. And I don't want to say often is the time that I have those conversations that those people are in bad situations in their life. That's not the thing. But that's not the case in most cases. But there are things that they know that they missed because they didn't establish the routine and the habit, number 5 that we're talking about, of practice before pleasure. And that put them into other situations in life that they still didn't learn practice before pleasure. And there's some compounding effects. It goes back to I don't know if I said this on a podcast, but I really truly believe this is, lessons are repeated until they're learned. And you either learn those lessons in our framework, or I really believe that those lessons are going to be introduced in a different framework later on. And it's so much, and I'm biased, but it's so much easier and it's so better to do it in the framework of our studio, where people love you, care about you, want to see you succeed, are there to help you, but we're not, we're there to kind of, push you up when we can, but we're going to mainly be on the side of you going, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. Because if we do it for you, then you didn't practice it. You didn't create the habits that you need. And so, like quitting more than, quitting hurts more than you know. And if you develop that practice before pleasure or dinner before dessert, however you want to call it, it's going to serve you well for the rest of your life because you can take that skill and plug it into anything else.
Right. And okay, so as it relates to these habits today, we talked about 5. If you could make these habits stick, right? Think about how much better your child's life would be. Adults, think about how much better or easier maybe would be the right way to say. How much easier would your life be? Listen, the truth is simple. These small habits turns into big character changes. And you don't have to wait for your kids to grow up to be able to implement some of these habits. They can be trained into them, right? Then they can start to build that character that you would like them to have from whatever age they're at. And
Well, and understand, I was going to say too, understand that just because you introduce it and you keep repeating it and you're still helping them out, you still have to have 1,000 conversations. We as human beings don't get it the first time. We don't get it the second time. We need to have it done over and over and over again. And again, I'm a broken record, but Zig Ziglar said a message can travel around the world in a matter of seconds, but it takes years sometimes for it to penetrate the last 3/4 of an inch, which is your mind. But at some point, if you keep doing these things over and over and over again, you will have that aha moment and you go, oh, I get it now. And then it becomes a part of your life. But you've got to move a lot of dirt in order to find the gold.
And one of the, I like to connect to that is pressure builds diamonds, right? Pressure, that's where it comes from. So you have to put yourself under some sort of pressure in order for these things to happen. And I think to me, that is the daily grind. That is the opportunity to go through and do these things on the days you don't necessarily want to do them, because that is the pressure. And then if you can withstand that pressure, then what you turn into on the other side is that diamond.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect. I love that.
Now, okay, listeners, as we're wrapping up here, my challenge for you, or our challenge for you, is to pick just one habit that you heard from today, one of the 5, just one, and practice it for 1 week. Right, 1 week, practice one of these habits, and then let us know. Find us on one of the social media channels. Let us know say you practice habit number whatever it is, and tell us how that went for you. Right, let us know. Bring us in, and as the parent, I'm gonna give you an extra challenge. Make this a competition between you and the kids. Right, so you and the kids or child or whatever you have. You and the kids go through this together. Challenge your family to go through this challenge together, to pick one of these habits and do them, and make sure. And what this does is when you do this all together as a family, then you have a accountability system built in, right? You get to talk about it as a family. That's another conversation you can have without the screens that are there as the parents. You have the opportunity to have that car ride home or the dinner dinner conversation, about this, and then you're challenging each other. Then something special, I think, will come out of that.
Absolutely. You can make a little chart, right? Mm-hmm. Put it on your refrigerator, and I'm not saying that you need to have a prize at the end, but the prize is that you won, but everybody wins because they're attempting to better themselves that week. So, and then to your point, repeat it the next week, come up with something different or the same thing, whatever it is, but come up with something different the next week if that's the case. And then just keep reintroducing, these habits to yourself and then also your child as well.
And hey, listeners, just so you guys know, next week we're going to dive a little bit deeper, not necessarily into habits, but into the systems that will help those habits to become automatic. That's the goal for next week.
Can't wait.
Thanks for joining the TriStar podcast, where black belts begin at home. Connect with our community by visiting tristarkarate.com. Follow us on social media and share this episode with a family who's ready to grow stronger together. Until next time, stay focused, stay faithful, and keep training like a champion.